guys can use your whole 15 minutes.
Probably won't need it.
If you like. And for the public, these are line items in the budget, 761 through 828, at least with respect to the Department of Public Works. Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. No problem.
Hi.
Did you gentlemen want to make a presentation, or do you want to open it up to questions by the council?
We'll just start by saying that for a number of years, you guys have been asking me, you need new people, you need more people. Well, this year we have three new people. The lower level guys, they're going to be, one person's going to be working at Doyle Field, working with the forestry department. And we have 2 W1 laborers, which are not CDL necessary people that will facilitate with sidewalk tractors and things like that in the winter. So they're going to be busy, and it's a couple of guys that we really do need.
Okay. I know, Roger, we have you coming in on the 24th for the aeration and clarification equipment, so
Okay.
I don't think we'll go too deeply into that this evening. Is there anything on the water and sewer side that you want to brief us on?
There's not much here in terms of major items. Just a couple of capital projects. They're kind of overlapped with the last communication from the mayor. You gave it regular course during the last meeting. So some of the funding, we can go over that now. We can go over that later, whatever's more convenient.
You can give us, for the public, just a general overview where you're going with some capital needs.
Well, the capital is really going to be on projects, to be honest with you. We're doing Linda Lab. We're just going to start back to finish the last leg of that project, and then we're looking to hopefully cobble together enough money to finish Miriam Ave. The DPW water crew is presently working out there. They're at Miriam Parkway. They're hopefully going to make it to Doyle, and then we are looking to take the contractor that's doing the work on Linda Ave and relocate him over to Miriam Ave and try and finish from Walcott Street to Doyle. And then that whole leg all the way in would be finished for, and you know, I know everybody, especially Council Marchand, has been waiting to see that stretch of road paved. So the utilities there would be done, and then they could schedule it for paving. So that's what we're really looking at with the water. That was 850, and then the other 300,000 of that is we're looking to do some granular activated carbon for the filter boxes at No Town. One of the problems we had with the TOCs was we weren't prepared to get as intensely into removal based on the quantities that were there. So we're actually engineering something going forward. The results the last 2 quarters have been excellent, but we're looking for a longer-term solution in case we do get hits or higher TOC levels.
Those were communications we saw on our last agenda
Right.
out of anticipated free cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And then on sewer, there's a couple of projects we're looking to do on that as well. So mostly capital projects.
Okay. Anything else either of you want to?
Yeah, we have a huge construction season that I guess we're already halfway through. Planned this year, you're going to see a lot of activity. You're going to see a lot of new sidewalk. You're going to see some new drain work. You're going to see hopefully upgrades at the cemetery. And also, one thing that I didn't mention earlier about positioning is that we have constructed where we have an OSHA and MS4 coordinator. We combined it into one position. I have an advertisement here from Chelmsford. They're looking for a safety specialist, and the starting salary is $75,000 for that job alone. So for us to convince a person that we already have in our building to take that job and combine the two is a huge savings. So we're pretty excited to get this guy going. And it's mandated by state and federal government, so we don't have a choice.
Federal law changed on that February 1st. So municipalities were no longer exempt from that requirement. So that's the federal part of that.
So I guess in some, you should be somewhat happy with this budget, I guess, because you finally got some help, right?
He's happy, I got nothing.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with you, I suppose, right? Any members of the Finance Subcommittee have any questions for either Roger or Ray?
Yeah, just, I know you mentioned projects, and it was touched upon last night that there's gonna be some culvert work being done on Litchfield Street. Do you know when that
That is supposed to happen as we speak. Couple of glitches. The bid came in higher than the money that we had from our grant. So we're trying to work out the details, either A, get an extension, or B, put the extra money in ourselves, but stay tuned on that one. I don't have the details yet. It's a $500,000 project that came in $200,000 too high.
And I know that there's a lot of that type of infrastructure, so is there anything else on the radar we can be expecting, you know, anything that comes to mind?
We just finished a culvert on Page Ave that was bad. It was smaller, so we picked that one off, and I mean, we're gonna do 4 on Willard Street and pave Willard. That's our hope for this summer also, is to get the 4 culverts that have been holding up the pavement on Willard Street completed, installed, and then pave it.
What section, do you know?
There's 4 as we go down. There's one at the railroad track, and I think there's some going down towards the condos.
So between 117 and Route 12?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Good. No, I think we had a pretty extensive conversation the other night about cemeteries, so I'm good there. You know, other than the fact, is there any expansion going on of the cemetery? Somebody asked me about that, if we're gonna, you know, what our availability is to expand, and water spigots, infrastructure, is there gonna be any?
Yeah, we need probably a pretty major upgrade in the water system down there. It's all very old.
Okay.
Some of it's old iron pipe that breaks, so we haven't quite figured out, I don't want to dig that whole place up, what to really do yet, but we're going to try to, piece by piece, we're trying to work out. But for the expansion, yes, we are intending to pave 4 more roads that were not paved and have open lots on them. So there's going to be expansion.
Okay, good. I think I'm good for now.
Any other councilors have questions? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ray and Roger, for coming down tonight. So in looking through the budget, it looks like, in terms of the DPW, they got everything they asked for, the department. I didn't see any.
Yeah, we're at least level on pretty much everything.
Everything, yeah. So I compared line item by line item.
Yeah.
And in terms of the 3 new positions, are those full-time year-round?
Yes.
Full-time year-round, that's great.
Yes.
Are they both I was looking to find them in the budget. Are they
There's
in the
2
highway?
highway and 1.
Yeah.
The one in Forestry existed a number of years ago that was taken away, that we're gonna reestablish because between Doyle Field and our forestry crew is 3 men.
Yep.
We can't keep up.
Okay.
So they're gonna add this 4th guy. Is it enough? Probably not, but I mean, it's gonna take some of the heat off.
And that's the Doyle Field person?
Yes, it's gonna be the
Okay.
Doyle Field person.
Okay.
And the other 2 guys, you see one of them downtown now, picking up, it's Matt Hool.
Rubbish.
He's tremendous.
Okay, right.
He's tremendous.
Yep.
I'd like to get one more just like him.
I have seen him,
Yeah,
and he's doing a really good job. We have a very big trash bin right outside of Jenny's, so we keep a close eye on that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'm good.
You good?
Yep.
Anybody else? Councilor Marchian?
If I can, gentlemen, thanks for coming down. Thank you for all the work you do. I know it's been tough, especially this spring. You know, you got kind of rained out for quite a while before you could really sink shovels in the ground and everything. So the city looks absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
congratulations to you and your staff. They're doing a great job. A couple things. First of all, the discussion, it was brought up by the mayor regarding Smith Street and how paving that is really not the solution. There's some serious underground issues in that area with hydrology. I was just wondering, are we gonna be dealing with that at all on the radar in the next year or 2? I know you're dealing with Merriam Ave, but does it trickle into that part of the neighborhood?
Smith Street is not on the radar for this year. Actually, our guys went in and they did a pretty extensive repair. Steve Ricker and his men went up and he viewed as where we could put a couple of catch basins. That seems to have eliminated the major problems for now, so we bought ourselves some time.
Right.
But I mean, it needs a complete drainage system. It's all corrugated pipe.
Right.
And gone. It's rotten.
Okay, all right, so obviously you're not gonna put money into paving until that gets resolved.
No, I think that total project was 400 grand.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I can imagine. Okay,
we'll
the other
do it,
thing,
but just
the other
costs
thing
money.
too is, I actually asked the Ward One councilor to get back to the council at the next meeting on a report regarding Burridge Ave, but since you're here right now, can you give us any kind of an update as to
Yeah,
what's happening with that?
There is a study being done right now by Woodard and Curran. They expanded their parameter, what they were gonna study to try to find out what they could do to help a situation that really, we're trying to come up with a way. I think that we found ourselves, by cameraing and our investigations, that there's a piece of pipe that's undersized that we're gonna try to obtain funding for and replace that at some point in the near future. So we're working towards those details out, as having, the study back from Woodard and Curran. I don't have that. But that
Right.
one piece I think we can do, I think it was 100 feet of pipe, and, we're gonna look further into that.
Okay. All right, is the golf course participating at all with that? Or is that just strictly a
Yeah,
city
no,
issue?
Yeah, it's on our property. I mean, I can't really,
Right. Right, okay. The last thing is, the rec department is not coming down for a budget hearing this year, but I mean, they're being overtaxed like the DPW has, especially with maintenance, type of daily maintenance things. Are you guys collaborating at all, or are they basically on their own when it comes to, you mentioned Doyle Field, for example, rubbish collection, things like that?
we've been there and we participated quite extensively in that addition they're doing. A lot of it we did. So, I mean, we do work with them quite a bit. But I think in the summer, she's pretty well staffed to do her own trash removal. I mean, if we have to help, we probably would be better suited to do it now than we were in the past.
Right. It's always a chess game, too, on who's gonna cut the lawns.
Yeah,
You know, what
it
happens is, for example, Carter was under the school department, the backfield was under the rec department. It's in limbo, we don't have to worry about the front
Yeah.
anymore, but the back sometimes gets away
No, I
from
think
us, and
I
it's
think
just,
the rec does that.
Yeah.
I think they do.
yeah, well, they do it now.
Yeah.
They do it now. Okay, thank you guys very much.
Counselor Frida?
Just more of a comment. At some point, Roger or Ray, I'd like to see a list of maybe the past 5 years of grants that we've acquired. I mean, I don't think anybody realizes how much work you put into it. I work with a lot of other mayors and councilors and selectmen. They're astounded when I tell them the amount of work that our employees do, because it's, some people just go to work 9 to 5 and that's it. 7 to 3. They don't take the initiative as we are lucky enough to have here on going out for grants, MassWorks grants. I mean, so many of them that have saved us money to put funds into something else, so.
That's documented. We have a list of that.
Okay, I'd like to see one if we could, because I think it'd be a big surprise as to exactly how much money is involved. Roger, you probably know off the top of your head, but.
Not all of it. I mean, we've been fortunate. We've got a really good crew that works together. Ray sits down with all the different departments and foremen, and we bring John Roseberry and Mark Pimarini in, and we go through a whole bunch of capital needs, and then you try and incorporate that with what the city's doing. So the MassWorks piece is a little bit trickier because you need to have an economic or a housing component, and we work with Wendy closely on that, and she's a huge help. So it takes a lot of us, but we're all working together on it, and it's really it's huge money that we've been able to save. I mean, between the last two, one was $2.5 million, one was $1.3 million over in Adams and Cotton, and those were mostly sidewalks, water, sewer, drainage projects. So, it's great to get those done because it didn't cost the taxpayers anything. Ratepayers don't have to pay for the utility
That's my
upgrades.
point.
Yeah. So we'll try and get you that.
Also, I have this information for you, Claire, that you asked me for on what was done at the chapel. So I have a narrative of what went on there. And speaking with the people that were involved, they think they spent at $8,000 to $10,000 on the upgrades in there.
How much?
$8,000 to $10,000. Rest of it was
Already has
volunteer.
been spent?
well, back when the thing was, I mean, it hasn't been anything since, I don't know, 2000 or 99 or something. But this is when that upgrade went on. I don't know how.
In other words, this is the upgrade that happened.
Yeah, this is part of the
15 to 20 years ago.
Right,
How many weddings have been there to offset that expense?
not mine.
I still think there's a lot of people that want to get married in the cemetery, I don't know.
Yeah, I would have no issue with that.
That's where it ends.
All right,
Yep,
that'll be the end of my
the
conversation.
ending
on that.
begins.
Counselor Feckley?
I don't know how I'm going to follow up on that. But
You know what they
guys-
say, Counselor Feckley, there's the only difference between a wedding and a funeral, you can smell the flowers at one of them.
That's probably true, especially the cemetery. So just for both of you, for the public, really the only line items that went up with any heft are things attached to vehicles, gas, sand and salt, everything goes up. New totes, which I need one, so I can imagine a lot of people after the winter and the spring need one.
Yeah,
And,
that's health,
yeah,
that's not us.
Yeah, and then MS4 and OSHA compliance.
Yeah.
So it's to your credit that, you're getting all these jobs done, basically on balanced budget, except, these are things that, the cost goes up, and what can you do? So thank you very much. I'm sure that the
We're
community
actually
appreciates it.
amazed at what gets done. I mean,
Yeah.
with what we have for staffing and being level funded, we do get a lot done.
Yeah, and Mechanic Street's great.
Yeah, it's
That's
beautiful.
smooth as ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
Everybody all set? Thank you, gentlemen, for what you do, and thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
You did great on the time, too. Very efficient.
School gave me a bad time.
Is there a hockey game tonight or something?
I heard that.
All right, well, it's past 6:15, so if Superintendent Deacon and the school folks want to join us?
Mr. Chairman, before you begin, I'm in conflict of interest with a daughter and a wife that are both teachers in the district. So if I'll be abstaining from that portion of the budget.
Salary and
Thank you.
wages. Okay.
If you can just note it in your records.
So noted.
Thank you.
Counselor Cormier will note that in the minutes.
Who's here?
Oh, from the school department? Yes, sure.
Just wondering what the number is on that Bruin shirt. Is that 63?
He is not around anymore, but that doesn't mean he's not a
Well,
good.
we'll pretend it's 63.
It's all about the spirit of the evening.
Absolutely.
I made her do this evening.
Okay.
And as much as I might bore you, I know that the puck is dropping after 8 o'clock, so we'll proceed right away, so.
All right, this is line items 412 through, we just have a summary, so just 412 through 416. Superintendent Deacon, could you introduce yourself and who is with you this evening, so our clerk can get it for the minutes?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Paula Deacon, Superintendent of Leominster Public Schools. To my left, Michael Stassen, who is the Chair of the School Committee Finance. We have Vice Chair Nona Ojala, Financial Analyst Melanie Michaels, Business Manager Glenn Frado, members of the School Committee, my administrative team, district and building-wide are here this evening.
Paula, is that microphone on?
I'm hoping.
How about now?
Yeah.
It is
That's better.
much better. Okay.
All right, you can proceed. Thank you very much.
I hope everybody has a copy of the presentation. This is the proposed budget that went out on May 6th, that has been out in the public. So the first page, there's a word art there that really depicts, as soon as we say the word budget, this is the image that most of our constituents picture. So they see the dollar sign, they see facilities, buildings, local funding, staffing, and this year, it's really been around the Chapter 70 funding, which we have forged one heck of a fight, I have to tell you. We actually were on the House floor in January. We had a face-to-face meeting, and Leominster is being spoken about daily. So I do want to thank everyone who's been a part of our team, our administrators, our district staff, our school committee, and our stakeholders that have made that a priority. This year, it was purposeful in getting our house in order. The school department is a home, and we needed to make sure that we scrutinize and analyze everything that came across our plate. If you look at the next page, we have objectives. We don't just do this just because. The big question in education all the time is why? Why? We have things that are urgent versus what is important. It's all important. So we leverage what is urgent. So first and foremost, promoting the academic excellence of all of our students. The safe environment, that's not just the physical safe, that's the social emotional safe. The physical, the academic safety. We want to make sure the comprehensive needs of every child is met. We have promoted social emotional learning throughout this school year. We have core values that are established in every meeting, every facility that we visit, and that we stand behind. And we've really fostered an environment that not only we've worked well with the city, within our buildings, but we have reached out to our local stakeholders, businesses, and we want to build partners for education. So we had a process. My poor administrative team. Nobody went on the Christmas break until 3 lists were formed. By December, we said, what are you already seeing for a staffing need, a resource need, and a facility need? And that's where the process began. So we looked at building administration, program administration, our facilities director, the business office in conjunction with City Hall. Task force were initiated, and we began our strategic planning process. Step 2, we brought this collective information, and if you come next door to the superintendent's conference room, it looks like a war room. There is paper floor to ceiling hanging. We have everybody's thoughts and opinions, and we had to decide, what do we actually have the capacity for? Growth is always optimal, but what can we do as a district? Step 3 was our school committee. By February, we were scrutinizing and evaluating the choices that we made for FY19 in order to determine what would happen in FY20. And several meetings, correct, Michael?
Oh, yeah.
Several meetings, yes. And so we're here this evening to present those to you. Budgetary factors every single year, state aid and local revenue. The state aid is still not established. Here it is June 12th, and we're still wondering what's going to happen. Out-of-district tuitions in special education is a priority for us. It's growing and it's changing, and we're impacted greatly every day by that. Our technology capacity and supports, we're in a culture now where all of our assessments are online, our teaching is online. We were actually able to have 3,800 students test statewide district testing without flaw. Employee health insurance. Need I say more? Our contractual agreements, we've got obligations that we must meet, and we exhausted much of our revolving accounts. Circuit breaker is down to nil, and school choice is being put towards paying our health insurance this current year. And lastly, our capital budget requests, our buildings, they're essential. If we can't keep the buildings safe, we can't keep children and staff safe. So we need to address this need, and it is mandatory. As we went through our lines, the effects and the choices that we made, we were able to reassign multiple staff members within district to no cost to the city. Many educators have not just one degree or license. So we looked at the needs of students, and we reassigned staff to better address what our needs were. We have asked to bring on 13 staff members next year. 3 are very unique. It's Unit A, which is the teacher's contract, but they're distinct licenses. A guidance counselor for the high school, 1,800 students plus. 5 guidance counselors, it's not enough. We have a behavioral program over at Northwest. We need a school adjustment counselor. And I wish I was this talented, but I need an electrical teacher. Those aren't degrees that people just have. The addition of 6 tutors and 4 paraprofessionals, those are either child-specific or program-specific. The cost of those 13 positions is $370,000 in salaries and approximately $150,000 in health insurance. With these changes, we can maintain class size. We have no adjustments to any current student fee structure, so families will not be impacted further where we're at. So when you look at the budget proposal that was unanimously voted upon on May 6th by the school committee, 8-0, our wages and salaries of $49,930,883. That is reflected in the budget. Our expense line, there is an adjustment. What is in the city's department request is adapted from what we actually put out there. We asked for $22,267,526, which is a negative of $236,960. With a cut to what has been proposed by the mayor of an additional $609,566, it puts us at a negative of over $845,000 in the expense line. Our indirects have been posted for $4,240,317. When we put the budget together and it was put forth, we had an amount. This is based now on the governor's budget because that's what the mayor had chosen to use. We use House 3801, which was slightly higher. We're about $111,000 higher, and we're not sure where this is going to land. So we put it back to the governor's budget. Over net school spending is $227,690, which is 0.3% over net school spending. So I presented a net school spending budget with a slight adjustment. I do want to say that last year, the counselors, many of you offered me many suggestions, which I appreciated. And our celebration page came from this meeting. The team behind me and aside of me, we dug in very deeply around grants. Counselor Frieda, you just asked the water department about grants. This is where we have to keep going. We were awarded a multi-year grant which will bring back middle school health teachers to both buildings next year, no cost to the district. From Chapter 74, West Boylston students who have chosen to join our CTI program, we are able to bring on a second dean at no cost to the district. We have finally our one-to-one initiative that we are rolling forward, and in your packet you'll see there's a 3-year plan, a rollout plan. We have been awarded a digital partnership grant which will afford us that possibility. We were able to put all ELL programs back into their home schools so students don't have to opt out of services in which to attend their home school. We reallocated, reassigned, however you want to put it, at least 12 positions to better address student needs at no cost to the district. Part of the middle school health teacher grant, we were provided a transitional liaison. This is a 0.3 position. Students leave us for multiple reasons. It could be a physical, academic, whatever the need is, but they come back. And so when the child comes back to our schools, we need a liaison to make that transition seamless. What do they need? Why are they back? What is the time frame? And so that is also in our multi-year grant. We have worked with Wendy Weeks over on the city side for additional security in our buildings. We are going to have panic buttons in every one of our school offices, new doors throughout Fallbrook and Northwest, and additional cameras. And lastly, the heart of what we do is teaching and learning. And Johns Hopkins University, through the Department of Education, just awarded us a $53,000 grant to do a curriculum overhaul. Are we putting our monies in the correct places? Are we providing professional development which actually moves students? Are we using effective teacher practices? So we have begun that process as of June 3rd with a teacher survey, and that will go throughout FY20. So the last picture of this packet is where my heart is. this is the image that when we say budget, this should be the first page, never the last page. This is what it's about. It's about the students of Leominster. And at some point in time, no longer can funding dictate education. It's about education dictating to funding. So if the formula's not gonna work for Leominster students, it's time for us to work for Leominster students. So I respectfully respect and request that you approve the net school spending budget that was voted upon by the school committee on May 6th. Thank you.
You realize that we can't add to the budget that
Correct.
the mayor sent down here, right?
Correct.
So all we can approve is the mayor's budget. Let's be clear about that.
Correct.
Members of my committee, any questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all your work. I'm still, I consider myself still fairly new to this, and when I first got on the committee, on the council, I'm sorry, the first year of these budgets was terrible. And it's just such a breath of fresh air to see the leaps and bounds your team has done, and how this just made it so much easier. We can see where you're going, we can see where you're heading. I'm very happy. I thank you for all your work.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to touch upon, some of the conversation that we had about grants. On the city side, we apply for grants all the time, and, some we get and some we don't. An example of one we didn't get was for California Field and some much-needed improvements that are needed there. But were there any grants that you see, that you've seen come through the past fiscal year that you applied for that you didn't get on the school side?
I would have to say no.
Okay.
We apply, and I have a fantastic writing team that's sitting behind me that knows how to craft the needs of Leominster students. They have the veteran status to know what the Department of Ed is looking for. Us being an urban district, we're heavily involved in the Department of Education, the urban superintendents, the urban principals. We take initiative with the new commissioner, and so we speak to him frequently, and he has been very gracious with Leominster Public Schools.
Good, good. That's good to hear. Another question I have is, you had stated that there was a cut made by $845,000
Yes, into our expenses.
from the expense account. Was there any reason given, or is there going to be any resolution to that? I know that, throughout the year, we get, supplemental appropriations that come down and things like that. So, I'd like to, I feel confident that one way or another, it'll all be resolved. But was there any other explanation given when that was done?
No, not at this time. I'm not quite sure why the expense number went in the way it did, so that was the first. That was the $236,000. So that made the difference of the 609. The expense side for us is always problematic, and Melanie Michaels in the Bruin shirt. We look at those line items. We start every morning looking at our line items, and we end every night looking at our line items. So if I had to cut almost $850,000 out of line items, that would have to be people. It's the health insurance that is the problematic piece. I want to have a July 1 budget that I can make informed decisions on, and we've been staying on top of our information as much as possible. Still not knowing where our Chapter 70 will end is a little bit problematic, but at this point, none of those new hires would have to happen, and maybe a handful of other cuts to compensate for $850,000. That's a lot.
Maybe this be
And
a useful time to go through the numbers a little bit. You think so, Councilor Corner?
Yeah, sure, and I'll come back. Yeah.
All right, so the salary and wages budget is, to round, is $49,931,000, which represents an increase of just over $2.7 million from last year's budget, right? And the school committee voted on the expense line item for $22,267,526, and that's where the delta between what the mayor sent us and what the school committee approved
Correct.
results from, which comes to 846,526.
Correct.
All right, so we're all on the same page as far as that goes. We all know that we don't know what the Chapter 78 is going to be, right? And I think that's some of the reasoning the mayor had in terms of why the delta between what the school committee approved, which he voted on, by the way, we all know, right?
Made the motion.
That's right, and what he sent down to us, because we all know that not until the fall will we actually finally adjust based on actual state aid received, and we'll know what our net school spending figure is at that point. And it's been my experience since I've been here that there's always some sort of supplemental appropriation that comes down at that point. That being said, we have a sort of unique situation this year, and those indirect charges that you're listing, 4.2 million, are those including the pension liability that's in our budget?
So I can answer that.
Okay.
I believe. There are two things. First is that while we do not yet know what the net school spending number will be, we do know what the required local contribution is, because the number in the governor's budget, which is the lowest of the proposals, already has us at our maximum local requirement. So if we get a higher net school spending number, all the additional will be Chapter 70. None of that will be required. So we know.
So we're meeting that even based
So-
on the mayor's budget?
Well, that
No?
depends. So
All right.
that was nebulous. We are $618,719 under the required local contribution as far as what we can see is clearly net school spending. The mayor did indicate last night that some portion of the 5.9 million that is in the reserve, the post-employment reserve line, I may have misquoted
Which,
that.
yeah, I
That
understand.
some of that will be spent on net school spending eligible stuff. And so to whatever extent that is, that will bring it up.
Well, my understanding is that that number last year for schools was 2.4 million.
Was 1
600,000 of normal costs.
Right.
For pension liability for non-teachers essentially, and 1.8 million to pay the unfunded liability.
Right. So we've
We don't have, we don't know, so this year, so all of that would be eligible, correct? 2.4 million, we know, right?
So we did include the 600 and something thousand, because the regular cost of retirement was
Right.
the 2,103,000 and change. And the comptroller gave us for this year that the school department's percent of whatever our retirement contribution is 30.33%. So we used that percent. He may recalculate, I don't imagine it changes
So
much
that
from year to
money's,
year.
that's money's in your 4.2 million.
Right, so the 30.33% of the regular contribution that's in that line item is included in our 4.2 million projected impacts. If additional retirement contributions are made out of the 5.9 reserve, 30.33% of those additional contributions will also count towards net school spending.
It is my understanding, from discussions with the mayor, that all of that, essentially $1.8 million, will either end up as reserve for pension or being spent on net school spending eligible items. So that therein lies the sort of, we need to sort of be transparent for the public. So that net school spending number, that when that happens, it hasn't been determined yet how much of it will be reserved for pension or how much of it will be spent on other net school spending eligible items. It hasn't occurred yet. But assuming it does occur, then that's another $1.8 million that's going to count towards net school spending.
Right.
So if we're at $600,000 deficit without including any of that money, if it stands to reason that will be 1.2 million over net school spending without addressing any of the 846 delta between the expense budget as approved by the school committee and the expense budget as sent down by the mayor.
That's correct.
Okay, just so everybody understands where we're
John
at.
Richard would like to weigh in on this.
Good time to do it.
Okay.
I just wanna-
Stretch my microphone as far as it goes.
You know, I want the school department to have their night and stuff, but I just want to make sure, because Councilor Cormier, I don't feel understands. The city gave the school department directly $3 million more. So it was not a cut by any means. It's a cut from their request. but it certainly was an increase of $3 million. And that reflects the Chapter 70 full governor's increase and the required local contribution increase by the city. So, just to make sure you understand, there was a reduction from their request, but certainly the city contributed more directly.
But that contribution does not get this budget up to net school spending as defined by the governor's budget.
It certainly
net school
does.
spending.
It certainly does.
The city only had to contribute less than $2 million to meet net school spending. And the mayor submitted an appropriation increase of $3 million.
Councilor Shalfo,
Okay,
correct me if I'm wrong,
can't-
Michael. If in fact the city uses all of that pension reserve attributed to the 30% attributed to the schools for net school spending eligible items, either pension reserve or other expenses, we will be over $1 million over net school spending. Correct. The mayor is assured,
It's a big
I
if.
have been assured that that's going to happen.
So that's basically our issue,
Right.
It's kind of hard to budget when we don't know what that will be.
And plan,
Right.
and hire people.
I take him at his
Well,
word, that will go. But if it's
Right.
1.8 million towards net school spending in the form of additional retirement, then that doesn't do anything about our 864. If it's
I understand-
half retirement,
I
half
understand-
something else, it does a fair amount. Right?
I understand those issues, but, I'm confident that this budget is going to be at least $1 million over net school spending, when all is said and done.
Right.
That doesn't solve all your problems.
Right.
I get that. We still have the delta on the expense side, which is going to have some impact on wages, because we all know that you can move these items between the lines, whether it's salary and wages or expenses, and you may need to do some of that to make your budget work. I get that.
Health insurance is 12.5 million out of the 22.3 million expense side.
You got all of those things that,
All the benefits
unfortunately,
are
that
over
all
there.
go up every year quite a bit. We get it. But I just wanted to make it clear as to what we were working with here in terms of net school spending and the budget in general terms. On the transportation side, getting to that, we're always chasing that every year, right? That's always a problem. The mayor suggested that he's trying to catch up. So I guess the city has added, or the mayor has proposed an additional 350, which helps, but doesn't quite get us where we need to be, because we're going to have problems with that as well. That number, that 3.85 million doesn't include McKinney-Vento yet, right?
Or Medicaid.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing.
Right, so the
So-
Medicaid is 925, we already know that number.
But we're still, even with that, we'll be at about 4.7, say, call it.
Correct.
We're still gonna be behind. So there's always some kind of makeup that has to be done there as well.
Correct.
So hopefully this is a living, breathing document, because you're gonna need some more money, right? All right. But I think the comptroller is right. I mean, in gross dollars, there's a lot more dollars here. Unfortunately, expenses keep growing too. So, all right. Councilor Marchand.
First of all, thank you. What you have done in the last, how many months?
20.
20 is absolutely amazing. You inherited a real mess. No black eye given to any school committee members that were involved in that point. It's just that I think that, now that the dust has settled and we've been able to figure out things as a community, Leominster Public Schools are alive and well. And I think that's an important message that has to go out to the public. We can argue back and forth about how the money comes about. At the end of the day, the pie will be completely cooked. All the ingredients will be in there. We feel pretty confident. As the council president, I feel extremely confident that is going to happen. My concern right now is special education. Superintendent, you and I have had some brief conversation on this. And I think I strongly advise that this is one of the areas that we look into as a community. With our new assessment team going into place, we have some very dedicated teachers and paras involved. I'm not sure if we're servicing them to the level that we need to. This is a big undertaking to figure it out. But I do know that para-student ratios have to be pretty tight. I do know that some of the disabilities that our students have K through 12 are very complicated. I do know that sometimes there is more additional staffing that's needed, including nurses, not a part-time nurse, not a para that's going to be doing catheterization, things like that. So I think that needs to be looked into. I'm also concerned about how we lose kids in school choice, and we lose children with disabilities to school choice because we can't service them in-house. Now, the flip side of that is that we do service a lot of kids in-house. But again, the question is, are we actually providing them with the services that are qualified to your standard, not mine? The next thing is that postgraduate life. And we do have a lot of postgraduates, I understand, in the high school program. Life skills is a high school thing. Those kids are adults. We have some of those kids that go out with best buddies. They can actually buy a beer because they are old enough to. They stay in the program till the day before they turn 22. Now, my concern is, what are we actually doing for them? Now, I do know that that 18 to 22 category, or the postgraduate, we have an organization like FLAC that might be able to assist us with that. But are we actually really servicing the kids, or are they just like an extended older kid in the program? We had a brief conversation about job coaching, about bringing in staff that can actually take the kids, train them, make them viable people in the world of work. I've seen some companies hire these kids. They do a great job with them. Some of them are limited on the amount of hours they can work because of Social Security disability that they might be participating in. But my concern is that all of a sudden, we're just trying to keep those kids in-house and just a part of the program, and we love these kids. We don't want to let them go, but I don't know if we're really doing them justice. So I think that it would be a great idea for us as a community to actually take a look at that. I also am concerned about the possibility of circumventing the 7D license. We had a conversation on that. If in fact we had enough vehicles and we were able to transport the kids on community intervention projects, that the teachers or the paras have to be 7D certified, or the teachers as well. In some cases, if you have a bus that is bigger than that, a bus license carries into also the 7D world as well. But I think, this is something that would be great to see happen. It's all, again, taking a look at all the children, not just the classroom kids, but also the kids that are less fortunate, that are having to struggle with disabilities. So I know that you have a lot on your plate, and I'm just bringing that to the entire group here tonight. This is almost like having an opportunity to speak in a forum at a school committee meeting. So I appreciate the fact that you might consider looking into this.
We are. We have a new director who will be starting with us within a week. And we have been looking not only at our in-district, out-of-district, the range of programming that we do offer, and we have been working closely over the last 4 weeks to make sure that we are providing quality. It's not just housing, it has to be quality. We spend millions and millions of dollars for out-of-district placement. I'm looking at my report here. I have a history from 2017 to our projections of 2020. Over $7 million for out-of-district placement.
Yep.
Then talk about transportation needs. You see van pool all over the state with our homeless needs. Our needs are growing on a daily basis. And Melanie and Glenn can attest to, 2 weeks ago, 2 students moved in with residential placements. And we all looked at each other and said, okay, what are we doing with that? That has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. It really is impactful. But we have a fantastic CPAC team, our teacher team, our TAT team and assessment teams that work with our students to make sure that we are doing the best by our students. So having a fresh eye to look at our programming to make sure that we're doing the best that we can, I'm actually looking forward to FY20 for that.
You probably have, what I have seen in other school districts, the best buddies connection.
How we haven't won an award for that program is beyond me.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Those are that's that group are the most caring people. They're fantastic.
It's awesome.
They
So,
are. We do
from
a
my
lot.
heart, thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's
Thank
great.
you.
It's great.
Thank
Very
you,
proud
Mr.
of them.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Counselor Feckley?
Yes. So Paula et al., everybody's very polite, but I did see that the peanut gallery was beginning to get a little edgy.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of numbers. I have all kinds of numbers here, and I have to look at all these to the best of my ability between now and when we vote on the budget. So can I have a bottom line of, with what you are going, with what you, between what you asked for and what you got, what do you still need, bottom line?
Net school spending.
Give me the figure.
No, they actually need another 20 million.
Well,
No,
Because
no,
if you
no,
wanna-
listen, if I had that.
No, seriously, if you want to compete with Algonquin and
Yeah.
Westboro and Shrewsbury, you
Truly?
need another 20 million.
Well,
She can give me a
In
wish list and an
Southborough right
actual
now, they're
number.
getting $20,000
Yeah.
per child for net school spending.
Okay.
truly,
20,000.
Yes.
based on the governor's budget, the overage of net school spending of 227,690 would build the capacity and get the job done.
Okay, give me that number again.
$227,690, which is 0.3 over net school spending.
Okay.
You're saying that much over
Over net,
the governor's.
over the governor's number.
Yeah, okay. All
Of
right,
$76,211,000.
okay. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Counselor Frida?
I gotta tell you, after sitting here for 26 years, maybe 8, 9 superintendents, I'm not quite sure how many have come before us, it's the same conversation every year. Last night, we spent so much time with the mayor's summary about all the money we put into the parks, all the money we put into the playgrounds, so that these kids would have a place to go. We talked about the recreation department, on how many programs are flourishing because it gives the kids a place to go. How can we not have that same discussion about educating the kids? These are all the same kids. I mean, I can't. It's at the point with so many superintendents that there's got to be something that's not right here. It's not a right or a wrong. But if we're, this year, if we have more money because of your ability to pay the retirement, which is a great thing. We have $6 million there. We're going up 2.5%. If the governor's budget and the House and the Senate's budget is less, why don't we put more money into the school budget to try to help the school system continue what they're doing? I mean, I don't get it anymore. I'm trying, but I just don't get it. I think there's got to be a way that we could do a little more. I'm not saying throw the whole bank in, but I mean, let's, instead of just talking about making sure we meet net school spending, let's give something substantial, and let's really make a difference.
And Councilor Frida, I got to net school spending. I got there. So, I mean, what's your word? He always tells me, Paula, you're slim. It's really slim. But I respect that every department in this city supports us beyond. I have to say, I'm so proud to be a part of this. I can call the PD, I can call the fire department, I can call Ray and ask for help at any point in time. So I respect that everybody has needs. And so we worked tirelessly to get this to a net school spending, and at one point, we did have it up to close to $2 million over net school spending, and I said to Melanie and Glenn, get back in there. What else can we do? What else can we do? Right now, I'm 0.3% over. Like, it's time. It's time. And the state has done this to us for years, and we're fighting the fight. We're on the floor. You know, Michael's campaigning all over the state. We've met with Peisch directly. We're fighting for the kids of Leominster. And it's going to happen. I see it's going, Chapter 70 will change. But right now, it's time for us to do it. And so I feel like the school department has done their due diligence. We're at net school spending. We're slightly over, and I apologize for that. But that's what we need. And I won't do anything that we cannot sustain. So I don't want to buy things and then come back here next year and say, oh, we don't have the capacity to maintain it. This is a sustainable budget that's in front of you with no fluff. This one is about teaching and learning first and foremost.
Any other councilors have questions?
Yep, I do.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I'm looking at 3 different sets of numbers, so I'm confused.
That's okay. Welcome to our world.
So I'm looking at the mayor's budget book, and in here, and I'm just looking at expenses and salaries. I'm not, transportation and crossing guards, I'm not even gonna look at.
Right.
So in the department request, I have a total of 71,961,566 in the mayor's budget book. No, in the page, line item 409, 411, something like that. 49,931 in salaries, and then $22,030,000, 566 is the expense line. That's what I have in the mayor's book. Is that what the school
No.
committee voted on? No, okay, all right, well, I'm confused even more. All right,
If
There's
that
a
is shy of
On
$236,900
the expense.
on the expense line.
say that again? So you wanted to add, so the 22,030,566
Is
you-
shy.
is shy of 227?
Is $236,900.
The number we voted for expenses in the school committee is $22,267,526.
In the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, got
The
it.
number that's in the presentation.
Okay, the number that's in the
I don't know how
presentation.
that,
Could have been a typo, I don't know.
typo, calculation error,
Okay,
but for some reason those don't.
they don't match and I was confused.
The important number is that the delta between what the school department approved and what the mayor
I
sent
know
down
that. Yeah,
is
yeah, I know that.
846.
Right, no, thank you, I know that. So, just in the wages and salaries in the expense line, it's $846,000, 526, 846,526, right? And that doesn't even, and then we get into transportation, I mean, I calculated how much over a difference, about $1.5 million off in transportation is what I calculated from. Okay, no, I didn't add in the, I'm just looking, numbers to numbers. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay, so we've got that done. So, I do have a lot of questions, and I'm going to go back to the forum that was organized at Fitchburg State University. Superintendent Deacon, you were there. I think Mr. Stassen was there. I was there. Glenn was there. A lot of people were there. And it was a really very interesting group of people. The superintendent of schools, the business manager from Worcester was there. I think Gardner was there. Fitchburg was there. And it was a very interesting conversation because it was very serious about how urban school districts, and not necessarily all, but school districts are seriously underfunded by Chapter 70. That was a very big effort. It was well organized. It was a really smart presentation so that everybody could understand, look, these are the serious problems with state Chapter 70 funding, right? So, and then I know that the entire school administration, Superintendent Deacon, has been very diligent about following up and advocating at the state level because that's really where the change has to be made. There's no question about it. And the split still between state funding, Chapter 70 aid, and local contribution is 60-40?
It is.
That's fair? Okay. I think that's very important for people in the community to understand that the Chapter 70, you'll hear all kinds of numbers thrown around, hear all kinds of percentages, but when the bottom line, the bottom line in terms of school funding is the state still does contribute 60% of the school department budget.
Correct.
And local folks pay 40%, which is a lot of money. There's no question about it. However, we have a lot of kids to educate. We have a lot of kids with special needs. We have a lot of English language learners. We are an urban school district, and we need to do right by every single child in our district. That's why it costs a lot of money to educate everybody. I'm a very proud graduate of Leominster High School. I went to St. Leo's, but then Carter Junior High and Leominster High School, and I'm a huge supporter of public schools. And I think I'm going to agree with the counselor to my left here. I don't know what is wrong with this picture, but when you have a mayor, school committee member, sit in a public meeting and actually vote on and approve a budget, and then send something to be approved by the city council that is not that budget that was voted upon by the school committee and himself as a member, I have a real problem with that. I don't understand it. I would understand it more if the city of Leominster didn't have $19 million in a stabilization or free cash account. Really, think about it. You know, free cash still isn't, we haven't had it approved yet. We're estimating another 5.1 is going into stabilization. That's going to bring the stabilization account up to $19 million, over $19 million. That's a huge amount of money. So to sit here and nickel and dime our public school system and our public school administrators who have worked incredibly hard, I think it's obvious by the amount of work, by the amount of questioning, by the amount of information you guys have provided, by how well organized the information is and how it's been presented. You know, for us to not be, yeah, we can't add money to the budget. We also, you know, have the power to say, you know what, this is enough. You know, we don't want to invest in schools and we're still going to raise people's taxes? Really? Maybe it's time for some tax relief. If we've got $19 million sitting in a stabilization account and people don't want to make the investment in public education, well, maybe we should take a step back and say, okay, you know, let's stop taxing people to that extent. If you don't want to put it in education, where's it going to go? You know, into some magic slush fund that when free cash is finally certified 9, 10, 11, 12 months from now, you know, we'll know how it's going to be spent. I think this is crazy. We need to do a better job by the children in the city of Leominster and the people, the hardworking people in the community who work in public school service. So I have other questions. I'm sorry to go on. Does this budget include, it includes sources from other revenue sources, right, in addition to Chapter 70? It includes revolving, does it include?
Circuit breaker and
School choice, okay, that's what I wanted to confirm.
I think it's important to note that historically those revenue sources were not used in putting the operating budget together. That Superintendent Deacon wanted to make sure that those were included up front. So you have a net school spending requirement, you have the requisite amount of local contribution and state aid.
Mm-hmm.
She's also using her revolving funds that we know are going to be available to balance the budget.
See that, the revolving funds are supposed to be used for the line items that they're, right, I mean, athletic fees or whatever the fees are that are in those revolving funds are supposed to be used for those activities. They should not be to offset ongoing operating expenses in the school department everyday life. As, you know, school choice money, it drives me crazy. School choice tuition is to go into the classrooms to support the students who school choice into Leominster. It's not to offset transportation costs.
health insurance.
Or health insurance. I mean, you know, it costs money to run a city. It costs money to run a school department. And health insurance costs, unfortunately, do go up. But that's the reality. Every other city and town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts deals with the same problems. And I don't know how many of them actually use school choice to offset health insurance or other things, but that's a question for another day. Are you, does the school department have to pay for any other costs? I mean, you pay for health insurance, pension, liability. Are there any other costs that we're not aware of that you have to pay for?
In the proposed budget, we outlined $4.2 billion of anticipated indirect charges.
That's right, the indirect costs, right, which we kind of.
School resource officers.
School resource officers, yep, snow plowing, all that kind of stuff, financial office overhead,
We
yep.
estimated for, we actually, I'm not sure where in the city's budget it details what those charges are proposed for next year.
I haven't seen them, so that's a question that I'll raise with the comptroller.
We anticipated the number would be.
Okay.
At 4 million, I believe. But there are also other expenses we pay. The city bills us for the use of Doyle Field.
You have to pay for the use of Doyle Field for athletic competitions? No. Okay, you have to use, okay, do you pay for Doyle Field for anything?
We pay, yes.
Graduation?
We pay any time that the DPW employee works, we're charged, I can share the.
For the cost of the DPW setup and maintenance and things like
We
that?
don't charge a fee, we pay for the services that we need for us to utilize.
That they provide, okay, I get that. I had a question about LCE. Did moving LCE to the Leominster High School campus have an impact on the budget?
We absorbed the rent to help with that transition, so the building is moving as of Monday. Staff and students have come over, and They have picked out how they want to arrange, and they're having lunch up there on Wednesdays. It's been a seamless transition.
That's great. That's great. I know that a lot of people were really,
Yeah.
they were worried about that.
Yes, and we have a full freshman class going in as well.
Great, great. Security is a concern. I've heard from parents, and I've heard from students, and I've heard from a variety of people. So I believe the budget adds a third resource officer.
Yes.
Is that right?
And we increased on our indirects this year to acknowledge the fact that we've had three officers all year, very effective. And so we recognize that, so we increased our amount and contributed in our indirect to pay for their salaries.
Are they all at the high school? Or are they
Two at the high school, and we share one at the middle school.
You share one at the middle school. And that works?
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So I noticed that I think CTEI added a dean that was on your list of items.
That's through their
grant?
non-resident tuition that they bring in through the West Boylston students. We have about 20. It's a
That's great.
revolving.
Okay. And then, so I know that there are other deans in the middle schools, or they have been in the past.
Those are in the local.
Those are in the local
We brought
budget.
those back last year.
Okay, that's right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Along with the health teachers, which really
That's a grant,
was
yes.
very important.
excited.
So, question, what priorities, my last question, I think, is what priorities did the schools ask for that weren't included? You know, for example, I saw in the Leominster High School expense request section, upgraded cameras and security badges for the doors. Skyview asked for more cameras. Are there things that didn't make it into your budget that, you know, you're like super concerned about?
So we're still working on the security piece. The city has worked very nicely with us with this next grant that we're getting to address many of those issues. And CTI and LHS are close to putting in, they want their badges to swipe to unlock doors.
Right.
So we're about to put those in. We were able to secure that.
Between the high school and, between, you
All
know.
the doors.
All the doors in the high school and the CTEI.
Safety has just been
Good.
such a priority, and we put in each building's budget a safety line. So they could select what they wanted to do. This year, many of them put the reflecting, what do you call that? The windows, the film. So when you come in, you cannot see into our buildings, you just see the reflection of yourself coming.
Okay.
Locks and doors and cameras were added. We also received early in the year through the city side, cameras at both middle schools, updated cameras, which we can see what's happening at each building right on our cell phone. And it was actually very impactful with an issue that we had, it was just the immediacy of looking on your phone and saying,
Uh-oh.
we see you.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I do have one more question I want to go back to. In the binder that you guys provided, I'm in section 8. Section 8, and this is looking at Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, FY 20, Chapter 70 summary. So, I'm on the right-hand side, comparison to FY 19. I think it's the second page in that section. Second or third. Yeah, second page. Yep. So I'm looking at comparison to FY 19 enrollment foundation budget, required district contribution. So in FY 19, the required district contribution, according to this, was $28,957,291. The required contribution in FY 20 is $30,127,166 for a change of 1.2 million, right?
Exactly.
So that's the change in the local contribution.
That's based on the foundation budget formula and the city's ability to pay based on that formula.
Right.
Based on new growth, that's the amount the city has to pay. That will not go up, that's a fixed number, that's the required contribution.
Right. Somebody earlier was talking about a $3 million change in what, can you explain that, John? Because I thought earlier you said that the city had paid or has contributed a lot more this year to the school department. I'm just looking at that.
Yeah, the appropriation went up by $3 million directly to the school department, which you could say consists of the $1,826,993 Chapter 70 aid increase, and the $1,169,875 local contribution.
Right, right. But the 1.8 million is from the state.
Yes.
And the 1.1 million is the local contribution. So earlier, I think when you were talking about,
The mayor allocated $3 million, that's what I said.
okay, so it's 1.8 million from the state, okay, but that wasn't clear, it's certainly to me, and I must have misunderstood. So 1.8 million of that 3 million is from the state, that's additional Chapter 70 money that we're expecting, and the city, the local contribution went up 1.1 million.
So the total budget went up 3.
No.
Right,
Yes, that is
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
right,
Does,
right, but, oh, go ahead, Glenn.
just one clarification. As we mentioned earlier, we're not actually sure what the city chargebacks or indirect charges will be
Right.
for next year, because I'm not sure if it's in the mayor's budget.
Glenn, is your mic on?
No.
Is it on now?
That's better.
Is it on now? The sheet that Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr was referring to, it specifies the net required contribution
Yep.
of 76,211 and change.
Correct.
So
Correct.
Correct.
from that amount, you deduct whatever the indirect charges are from the city. 2 million, 4 million, 6 million. We don't know what that number is. We estimate it's going to be 4.2 million.
You're off.
Right.
You're way off. And I'm going to tell you, because the mayor spoke at your meeting on May 6th, because a lot of it's overhanging all of this, let's put the cards on the table, is pension. I hear it as a city councilor. I hear people telling me, pension liabilities funding, why are we going up 2.5%? People want tax relief. If we don't go up 2.5%, we're not even talking to you right now. That 2.5% increase, John, 1.9 million, right?
Yes.
Okay, you guys got it all. If we didn't go up 2.5%, there's no way we could make what we've given you so far. The mayor said on May 6th that of the amount that we don't have to spend anymore because the pension is funded, that Mayor Mazzarella stated, and I'm reading for your minutes, the city pension system is now paid. The teachers have their own retirement system. In the future, the city will be putting funds back into the school system. The amount could be upwards of $1.3 million. That's the amount that you're not counting yet, because you haven't got it yet, right? And I understand that, but I have been assured that you're going to get it.
As a council president, I'll qualify that. I was assured you're going to get that amount of money.
Well, as a
And I
councilor
understand
at
your
large,
situation too.
yeah, as a councilor at large representing people throughout the city of Leominster and every kid in the public school system, I have received no assurances. And as a business person,
Call the mayor.
excuse me, no, excuse me. And as a person who has done budgeting for her entire professional life, it is amazing that anybody would expect a school department to come in and develop a plan and develop a budget and agree to something with some assurances into the future about funding. I mean, that's just not, business people understand that.
Councilor, with all due respect, I was reading from the minutes of the school committee meeting, okay? That wasn't said to me, that was said in public. It's in the school committee minutes.
Good.
Now, I don't have to tell you. I mean, I'm trying to do the best I can to bridge. I mean, I want to see you succeed. I think you folks are doing a great job. I think you're working very hard, and I think your heart's in the right place, and you have a very difficult job. And I feel my job is to bridge the communication between the mayor's office and the school department and make sure that the school department gets the funds that they need. At the same time, I have, we have a lot of other moving parts here. We have the taxpayers to take into consideration. We have an overall budget to take into consideration. We're in a good position. I mean, the city is in a good position. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr mentioned the size of our stabilization account. That allows us to borrow money and do some of these projects like the athletic complex, where we authorized the $5 million bond behind the high school at a greatly reduced cost, saving the taxpayers a lot of money. So that's an important piece as well. So all these things got to work together. I have enjoyed the last couple of years working with Michael. I think he's a very bright guy and a very responsible guy. We've worked together on this, and I'm pretty confident that that money is going to be in the school department. And all of that $1.8 million, whether it's pension reserve or other net school spending eligible items, is going to be ultimately in the school department's column. I will see to it as best I can that that's happened. And you have a public statement by the mayor to that respect as well. I don't know what else I can do. Anybody else? Councilor Frida?
First of all, I would never, ever suggest touching the stabilization account.
I agree.
That's one
I
thing.
agree wholeheartedly.
But we do have the $6 million that we got from the savings on retirement, that we don't. Where is it?
No, it's in reserve. That has not been established yet.
Is that gonna go into OPEB?
And part of the strategy of this also is to make sure that departments do not become reliant on it on an ongoing basis. Because as you know, the next year, or even this year, when it's established what is available, at that point, whatever the city does not contribute to the pension system, then the mayor will have the opportunity to appropriate to the schools. But we certainly don't. I heard Councilor Shalfo say, well, how can they add people? That is the prime example, Councilor, of why we don't want people to use one-time revenues for ongoing expenses, okay? That is so against how we budget in Leominster. And I hope that never changes. Because we don't know, the mayor doesn't know what the pension system is going to need in the next year. So it could be, and hopefully it may be, a one-time ability to use some money to address one-time needs. Okay? It isn't anything that should be built into anybody's budget. And we've been straightforward about that right along. And you also have to remember, one of the big needs of the city is it still has well in excess of $100 million unfunded OPEB liability that needs to be addressed. So there are a lot of competing needs, and it's a good issue to have, but certainly we're not going to be giving the money out so that people can build up ongoing expenses with it.
No, that,
And that, excuse me, can I finish?
Sure.
Mrs. Hanson? That was my question about the OPEB. Is that as aggressive as the retirement system? Out of that $6 million, how much of that is going into the OPEB reserve?
That has to be decided. You know, we would advocate as much as possible as a tremendous compound savings for the city when you do that. And as a matter of fact, most communities, that's part of the OPEB strategy. Is once your pension unfunded liability is paid off, that amount of money is going to go towards OPEB. Okay, so
And I don't disagree putting money towards it, but
Guys, if I can just slam the brakes on for 1 minute.
Yeah.
With all due respect to this entire school department that has worked their tail off all year, let's try to keep focused with them on questions about schools. If we're all done with that, Mr. Chairman, this is, I think this is a,
we're talking about the budget.
about schools.
this is
directly about schools.
an administrative thing that's not really on the table right now.
Well, no, we're
really
talking, we are
Excuse
talking
me,
about money.
this
that
is
we
my
have in the
subcommittee
budget.
meeting, I think.
Right.
So I'm going to take it over again.
Thank you.
With all due respect, Mr. President.
No, you got it,
Councilor
George.
Frida, go ahead.
No,
I mean, it's
this is
appropriate.
important. This isn't administrative. This is money that we're talking about in our budget, and I think we have a right to know where the plan is for the money to go if we're telling the school department we're not gonna give them anything. That's
listen.
all I'm asking you.
That's fine. Go ahead.
And I guess
we didn't say we're not giving anything.
no, all right.
But when the
But
decision is
the
made,
6 million, I guess,
right.
when I made the comment earlier about all the superintendents and all the years, this seemed like the 1 year that we could increase the school department budget. Other years, I've agreed, we didn't have enough money to do the best you can. This year, with everything that's happened, and I agree, they're your successes. But what is the end date? What is it? Are you figuring on 15 years for to get OPEB funded, or are you trying to do it in 10?
No, our latest is 19, I believe, 19 years.
19 years.
We've been going down from 30.
So if you put less money in it, and
takes longer.
did it in
It's like-
19 years.
It's like a 7.5%.
I get it. I know it's gonna cost us money, but it's at the
I'm just saying,
expense of something else. Is
Well,
just,
that's
it's
not before
certainly a
us.
difference of opinion. But
John, can I ask you a question? Sure. With respect to this money that's in this line item that's reserved,
Yes.
clearly it's reserved for the entire city, not just for the schools. School's only 30% of it, right? So when in the calendar will the determination be made as to what needs to be kept in reserve and what can be used for things based on what the mayor said on May 6th? When does that determination occur?
Yeah, that's undetermined. We're having a study done. We're having a study.
Is there any, do we have any guidance as to when? Any idea at all?
No, it will
How do
have,
we budget off that?
there isn't, yeah. It doesn't really, we don't have a timeline per
So
se.
you can't guarantee that money that you were speaking of.
No, no, there isn't. There's nothing, no. No, that's why you can't operate under any of that assumption.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah. But certainly, as you stated earlier, the city will, at the end of the day, be well in excess of 227,000 over net school spending.
I understand that, but I guess the issue is that, it reminds me of, I hate to bring back this specter, but,
I feel it coming.
17,
Yep.
some of us voted for the budget because we didn't want a continuing appropriations budget because the school department can't work with that. But, some of these.
Again, they should not, any additional appropriation would go towards
One-time expenses.
expenses anyway. So they,
So we can't
an
hire
But
anybody.
but
budget
even,
should be adopted,
hire anybody.
which reflects their ongoing expenses.
I understand that, but even with respect to that.
And that's what's passed, and that's all they have authorization for.
Yeah, I get it, but
Yep.
even with respect to that, I mean, there's certain things that you would order in the course of things, in an orderly course of things, that, you need time to plan and implement and all of that. So, I mean, if there's any way to sort of ascertain when that number might be ascertained, it would be helpful. I think, right?
Yes.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, anything else you want to add?
I would just like to say that I promise you that this administration will not deficit spend, we will not overspend, nor will we mismanage any money. Whatever is allocated, we will make the decision based on what is put into Munis as of July 1. And if that means cuts in staffing, that is where we are projecting to make cuts for FY '20.
I have one last comment.
Yes,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
I did want to address something that the comptroller said. I certainly understand the need and the rationale for not hiring staff, using one-time funds. I mean, we've been through the free cash conversations, for the last 10 years, so I understand that completely. But I guess, my point is that in the city of Leominster, we should just be able, budgeting is not rocket science. You have the information, as long as you have really good clear accounting, as long as you've got good systems in place, people know what they're spending, they know what they need. It is very simple stuff, believe me. So and it's all about priorities, it's all about telling a story. In the city of Leominster, we're in great financial shape. I have voted for many times to support putting money into the stabilization account to pay off OPEB because that's responsible, and I've agreed with that. However, I just don't understand why we can't agree with a budget that actually reflects what the school department needs. It's a very simple thing. They're not asking for millions of dollars over net school spending. They are asking for the money that the people in their system, the principals, the teachers, the administrators, have said they need. And it's bare bones. And I just want to go on the record as saying that, you know what? You can look around the city and flowers might be a priority to somebody and strolls downtown might be a priority to somebody else. And certainly pension funding long-term liabilities like that is a priority that I completely support. But I'll tell you something. My priority are the kids in the city of Leominster, and I think we can do a much better job at taking care of them. And I just want to go on the record stating that emphatically. Thank you.
Anybody else?
One more
Councilor
thing,
Larson?
I'll go right to the superintendent. I've been on the council for 22 years, and I've been a strong advocate and champion for the Leominster Public Schools, as everyone in here knows. right now, potentially, for the first time, you could see a no vote on the budget. Do you want the council to vote against the budget, or do you want us to vote for it?
I want you to vote for the school department's budget.
Thank you.
Well, I think you evaded the question, with all due respect.
And I will
she did, but I'm
continue to
gonna
do
talk to
so.
Todd
So
about that later.
I'm not sure I would have asked that question, you know, but that's Councilor Marchand's prerogative.
My job is, I'm the educational advocate, and we've
Yeah.
worked
That's
really,
fine.
really
We
hard.
also know what happens to
And
a
I-
school department when they go on a 1/12th,
Yep.
when they spend 35 or 40% of their money during the summer.
Right, right. It's a respectful budget. We did it the way we did on purpose. The process has been eloquent, and I thank everybody that's sitting behind me for their support. I have bosses all around me telling me that I will not deficit spend, I will not overspend, and again, I will never be represented as the person who was misusing funds for the city of Leominster. That will not be under my
You've been the most
administration.
trusted superintendent I've seen since
Thank you.
Marilyn
I
Frederelli.
appreciate that, thank you.
Any last comments or questions from the council? Okay, I'm gonna say thank you for coming. I'm gonna say this is a living, breathing document and process. I appreciate all that you do, and let's keep the communication going.
Absolutely, I appreciate
Okay?
it. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
Sound like Ron Wool tonight with the
I was gonna say, the living document, that's Ronnie's line.
Always like. You're channeling Ron, it was kind of interesting.
At least you're consistent. Good God.
I know, you know what, they don't move on.
Dave, kill the mic, please.
Huh?
Huh?